Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into some really incredible research today.
Oh, yeah?
It's about using AI to detect social anxiety.
Why?
And get this, they're using
A
GPT-4.
language model.
Yeah, the one everyone's talking about.
That's pretty cutting edge.
To analyze interviews,
Hmm.
it really makes you wonder, can a computer program really pick up on something as complex and subtle as social anxiety, just by listening to someone talk?
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And the research is looking pretty promising so far.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly is social anxiety disorder?
Well, social anxiety disorder, or SAD, is one of the most common psychological disorders in the world.
Wow.
It impacts millions of people.
Okay.
And it's more than just feeling shy or being an introvert.
Right.
It's an intense fear of social situations.
Yeah.
Driven by this worry of being judged negatively by others.
I can see how that would be really debilitating.
Absolutely. It has a real impact on people's lives. I mean, it can lead to people missing out on work opportunities, struggling in relationships, and it can even increase their risk of depression.
Oh, wow.
But here's the good news.
Okay.
It is treatable.
That is good news.
Yeah,
But I'm guessing it's not always easy to get a diagnosis.
you're right.
Yeah.
Less than 35% of people with SAD actually ever receive a diagnosis.
Yeah, that's shocking.
And many individuals wait over 16 years
Wow.
to even seek help.
16 years.
Yeah,
That's a long time to struggle silently.
it is.
I can see why the idea of AI helping spot the signs earlier is so compelling.
Yeah, early detection could really be a game changer.
Yeah.
If we can identify, those who might be struggling with social anxiety sooner,
Right.
we can connect them with the support and resources that they need much earlier.
So how did the researchers actually use AI to try and detect social anxiety?
Well, researchers in Germany interviewed 51 people.
Okay.
They asked them about situations that often trigger social anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Then they had these interviews transcribed
Uh-huh.
and fed into GPT-4,
Okay.
the AI model,
Makes sense.
for analysis.
So fascinating how they can just take those transcripts and
Yeah.
and feed it right into the AI.
Yeah, it's amazing what they can do these days.
But how did they know if the AI was getting it right?
Right.
Did they have a way to measure how socially anxious each person actually was?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Before the interviews, each participant completed something called the spin vine.
Okay.
It's a standardized questionnaire
Uh-huh.
that measures social anxiety levels.
Okay, so it's like
Kind of like a test.
a test.
Yeah, but for social anxiety.
Gotcha.
And this gave the researchers like a baseline,
Okay.
a ground truth to compare against GPT-4's predictions.
So the spin helped ensure they were comparing apples to apples.
Yeah,
It
go
makes
ahead.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so drum roll, please.
All right.
Did the AI pass the test?
The results were really impressive.
Okay.
GPT-4's predictions about the participants' social anxiety levels
Yep.
strongly correlated with the scores that they reported on this spinning questionnaire.
Okay.
And they found a correlation of 0.79,
Right.
which is statistically significant.
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay.
What does a correlation of 0.79 actually mean in plain English?
Think of it this way. The higher someone scored on the spin pin,
Uh-huh.
indicating more social anxiety,
Right.
the more likely GPT-4 was to pick up on that from their interview.
Okay.
It's like the AI was learning to read between the lines
Yeah.
and understand the subtle ways that language reflects our inner feelings.
It's remarkable how much the AI could infer from language alone.
It is.
It makes you think about all the information we unknowingly convey through our words.
That's right. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The accuracy score of GPT-4 in this study was 0.84.
Okay.
This means that the AI correctly identified most of the individuals who did and did not have social anxiety
Wow.
based on their interviews.
That's a pretty impressive accuracy rate.
It is.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
It does.
Are there any caveats we should be aware of?
Well, there are some limitations to
Oh,
consider.
yeah.
The study was relatively small, with only 51 participants,
Right.
all from Germany.
Okay.
So we need more research
Yeah.
with larger and more diverse groups to see if these findings hold up in different populations.
So we need to see more research to know for sure how well the AI generalizes to other populations.
Exactly.
It's important to remember that no study is perfect.
Yeah,
But even with those limitations, the potential here seems huge.
it does. If future research confirms these findings.
Yeah.
Imagine the possibilities
Oh, yeah.
for early intervention,
Yeah.
more accessible support, and maybe even reducing the stigma around seeking help for social anxiety.
Imagine if we could go beyond analyzing transcripts.
Yeah.
Could we use AI to detect social anxiety in real time?
Oh,
Maybe during therapy sessions or even casual conversations?
now that is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Think about an AI that could analyze not only the words someone is saying,
Right.
but also their tone of voice,
Yeah.
pauses,
Uh-huh.
and those little verbal tics we all have.
Yeah.
It could give us a whole new level of understanding.
It'd be like having a virtual therapist
Yeah,
with superhuman listening skills.
exactly.
So, what were some of the things that people talked about in these interviews?
Okay.
What kind of questions were they asked?
The researchers adapted a commonly used tool
Okay.
called the Leibowitz Social Anxiety Scale,
Mm-hmm.
or LSS, for the interviews.
Okay.
It's a questionnaire that clinicians use to assess, how severe someone's social anxiety is.
Okay, so break that down for me.
All right.
What kinds of things does the LSS ask about?
The LSS presents like different social situations that often trigger anxiety.
Yeah.
And it asks people to rate their level of fear
Uh-huh.
or avoidance in those situations.
Okay.
So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
think about public speaking,
Yeah.
meeting new people, or even just eating in front of others.
Right.
The kinds of things that a lot of people with social anxiety find really challenging.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to some of those.
Yeah.
So the researchers used these scenarios to get people talking about their experiences.
Right. They picked 12 specific situations from the LSS
Okay.
and asked open-ended questions about how the participants typically behave,
Mm-hmm.
think, and feel in those situations.
I imagine that format really encouraged people to open up
Yeah.
and share their experiences,
Exactly.
which would give the AI a lot more to work with.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The more information GPT-4 had to work with,
Right.
the better it could understand the subtle nuances
Yeah.
of each person's anxiety.
Okay.
They also made sure to ask about how much anxiety people felt in these situations and whether they avoided them
Yeah.
or wanted to avoid them.
It sounds like they were really trying to capture a complete picture of how social anxiety plays out in real life.
That's right. And that rich, detailed data
Yeah.
was likely a key factor in the AI's impressive performance.
You mentioned earlier that the study included people with varying levels of social anxiety. Did they have to be officially diagnosed with SAD to participate?
Interestingly, no.
Okay.
Remember, the ground truth was based on those spin scores,
Right.
not a formal diagnosis.
Okay.
And it turns out that about 25% of the participants scored above the cutoff for potential social anxiety disorder.
That's really interesting because it suggests that the AI wasn't just picking up on the extreme cases.
Right.
It was able to differentiate between subtle degrees of anxiety, which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
I agree that's one of the things that makes this research so compelling.
So if we step back for a minute,
Okay.
what do you think were some of the key ingredients that made this study so successful?
Well, I think the rich data from those open-ended interviews was crucial.
Yeah.
It allowed the AI to really delve into the nuances of each person's experience with social anxiety.
It wasn't just a checklist of symptoms. It was about understanding the individual story.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The researchers also carefully chose questions
Okay.
that aligned with the core features of social anxiety as defined in the ICD-11.
Now, hold on. Remind me what the ICD-11 is again.
Oh, the ICD-11 is the International Classification of Diseases.
Oh, right.
Think of it as like the global standard
Okay.
for diagnosing and classifying health conditions.
Oh, right. So by using the ICD-11,
Yeah.
they were making sure the AI was focused on the information that really matters for diagnosing social anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It ensures that the AI is aligned with the criteria that healthcare professionals actually use,
Yeah.
which makes the findings more relevant to real-world clinical practice.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And of course, they use those validated measures like the SESPIN questionnaire,
Right.
which gave them a solid foundation to compare the AI's predictions against.
Right. Using established measures like the SPIN is crucial for any research like this.
Mm-hmm.
It provides that objectivity and rigor.
Okay, so they had a well-designed study,
Uh-huh.
got some really promising results,
Right.
but you mentioned earlier that there are some limitations. Right.
What were some of the things that might have influenced the findings?
Well, as we discussed, the sample size was relatively small,
Right.
and all the participants were from Germany.
Okay.
It's possible that the findings might not be the same in different cultural contexts.
Yeah.
Or with more diverse groups of people.
So we need to see more research to know for sure how well the AI generalizes to other populations.
Exactly. Another limitation is that the study relied on those self-reported anxiety levels from the SPIN questionnaire.
Right.
While it's a validated measure, it's still based on how people perceive their own anxiety,
Right.
which isn't always completely accurate.
I can see how that could be a factor.
Right.
Someone might underestimate or overestimate their anxiety level.
Right. Ideally, future research would include a clinical assessment
Yeah.
in addition to self-reported measures,
Okay.
just to get a more comprehensive picture.
You also mentioned that the AI seemed to be better at identifying people who weren't socially anxious.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on why that might be? It's an intriguing question.
Yeah.
It could be that the AI model was trained on data sets where cases of social anxiety were less prevalent,
Uh-huh.
giving it more experience with recognizing patterns associated with not having the condition.
So, like, it's seen more examples of people who don't have it.
Yeah, it's like learning to spot patterns.
Right.
If you see more examples of one type of pattern, you become better at recognizing it.
That makes sense. And this was just one study using one specific AI model, GPT-4.
Right. Right.
Do you think other language models might perform differently?
It's definitely possible there are many other AI systems out there,
Right?
and some might be better suited for this task than others.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to compare their performance and see what insights we can gain.
It's like comparing different tools for a job.
Right.
Some might be more effective than others, depending on the specific task.
That's a good analogy.
I do.
It also raises the question of whether combining multiple AI models
Oh, wow.
might lead to even greater accuracy.
Oh.
Maybe different models can pick up on different nuances.
It would be like having a team of AI experts, each with its own strengths, working together to solve a problem.
Exactly, as the field of AI continues to develop.
Yeah.
I think we'll see a lot more research exploring these possibilities.
It sounds like there's still a lot of unknowns, but the potential here is really exciting.
It is.
What are some of the ways you envision AI being used in mental health care in the future?
One area that immediately comes to mind is screening for social anxiety disorder.
Okay.
Imagine a scenario where individuals could interact with an AI-powered chatbot or virtual therapist
Yeah.
from the comfort of their own homes.
That could be a game changer for people who are hesitant to seek help
Yeah.
due to stigma or fear of judgment. They could talk to the AI without feeling pressured or embarrassed.
Right, and the AI could analyze their language,
Yeah.
tone of voice, and other cues to assess their risk for social anxiety.
Uh-huh.
It wouldn't replace a human clinician,
Right.
but it could act as like a first line of screening.
It could help identify those who might benefit from further evaluation by a mental health professional.
Exactly. It could also potentially reduce the burden on healthcare providers,
Mm-hmm.
freeing them up to focus on those with more complex needs.
Okay.
Think of it as a way to make mental health care more accessible and efficient.
So instead of replacing human clinicians, AI could be a tool to support them and make their work even more impactful.
Precisely. And the potential applications go beyond screening.
Okay.
Imagine using AI to personalize treatment for social anxiety.
So moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach and tailoring treatment to each person's specific needs.
Exactly. An AI system could analyze an individual's data,
Uh-huh.
their conversations, behaviors, and even their physiological responses
Right.
to create a treatment plan that's truly personalized.
It could be like having a virtual therapist that's constantly learning and adapting to your needs.
Imagine an AI that could track your progress,
Right.
identify patterns in your anxiety triggers, and recommend coping mechanisms that have worked for others with similar profiles.
It could even make adjustments to your treatment plan in real time based on your progress and responses. That's incredibly powerful.
That's the potential of AI in mental health care. It could revolutionize how we approach treatment and empower individuals to take a more active role in their own recovery.
While these possibilities are exciting, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are potential downsides to consider as well.
Yeah.
We've talked about the need for more research and the importance of cultural sensitivity, but are there other concerns we should be thinking about? We've talked about how AI could help with things like screening and personalized treatment, but this research also raises some really big questions about AI and its role in our lives.
Yeah, it does.
Like, where do we draw the line?
Right.
What are the ethical considerations?
Exactly.
I think one of the most thought-provoking aspects of this research is how it challenges our assumptions about what AI can and cannot understand.
Yeah, I completely agree.
We tend to think of AI as being good at logic and problem solving,
Right.
but not necessarily at grasping the nuances of human emotion.
Yeah, like it's one thing to process data,
Right.
but to actually understand feelings is a whole other level.
And yet this study suggests that AI can analyze something as subtle as social anxiety just by looking at the way someone uses language.
That's what's so fascinating about
It's like AI is developing a sense of emotional intelligence, the
Uh-huh.
ability to not only recognize patterns,
Right.
but also to understand what those patterns might mean in a human context.
Exactly. That raises some really interesting questions
It does.
about the future of AI.
Could AI one day develop a form of empathy? The
Wow.
ability to actually share and relate to human emotions, not just recognize them.
That's a question that has fascinated philosophers and scientists for a long time.
Yeah.
And while we don't have any definitive answers yet, this research certainly opens up some intriguing possibilities.
It makes me think about the implications for human connection. If AI can understand our emotions, could it also help us connect with each other on a deeper level?
Oh, that's a fascinating thought.
Imagine an AI-powered tool that could analyze your conversations
Uh-huh.
and provide insights into your emotional dynamics with others.
It could be like having a relationship coach in your pocket,
Yeah.
helping you understand your communication patterns and navigate conflicts more effectively.
It could also help us recognize and appreciate different communication styles,
Yeah,
fostering more understanding and empathy in our interactions.
absolutely. But we also have to be cautious.
Right.
Do we really want AI mediating all of our relationships and telling us how to communicate?
That's a valid concern. I think it's crucial to remember that AI should be a tool to enhance human connection,
Right.
not replace it.
Exactly.
Ultimately, it's up to us as humans to decide how we want to use these technologies.
I think that's a really important point.
It's like any powerful tool. It can be used for good or for bad.
It all comes down to our choices.
Exactly. So, as we move forward with AI in mental health care and other areas of our lives, what are some of the key things we should be thinking about?
Well, I think it's crucial to be mindful of the potential biases that
Mm.
can creep into AI systems.
Okay.
If these systems are trained on data that reflects existing societal biases,
Right.
they could perpetuate those biases and lead to unfair or inaccurate outcomes.
So we need to be very careful about the data we use to train AI models.
Absolutely. And we also need to be transparent
Yeah.
about how these systems work
Okay.
and make sure they are accountable.
Right.
People need to understand how decisions are being made
Mm.
and have recourse if they feel they have been treated unfairly.
Transparency and accountability are essential.
Couldn't agree more.
And finally, we need to ensure that everyone has equal access to these technologies.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
don't want to create a two-tiered system where only certain groups benefit from AI advancement.
Right. It's about making sure AI is used to create a more equitable and just society.
Mm. Using technology to empower everyone and create a world where everyone can thrive.
Well said.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
It's clear that this is a field with immense potential, but also one that demands careful consideration and ethical reflection.
We have to proceed thoughtfully and responsibly.
As AI continues to evolve, it's crucial that we engage in these conversations and ensure that these powerful tools are used to benefit all of humanity.
I think that's a great message to leave our listeners with.
Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of you listening out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.